Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Sessions at 2. My name is Michelle Adamas and I'm the owner of Vintage Revival Design Co. Excuse my hair blowing in the wind. It is hotter than Hades here today and I've got fans all over the place. So anyway, today's video is different from our mixed media. I have been retiring courses to make room for new ones, and I came across this one, which was one of my most requested paint finishes when I was a Wise Owl paint retailer, and it's a restoration hardware inspired finish. So rather than just let that go, I decided to share it with all of you. So this is a shorter, more condensed version, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope you'll be inspired to create this beautiful finish, and I'd love to hear from you if you do. And also, if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. But enough of me talking, let's get to painting. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week as well. Welcome everyone to Learn to Paint a Restoration Finish. My name is Michelle Adamas, the owner of Vintage Revival Design Co. To begin this finish, you need to determine if your project needs to be primed. For this sample board, I just want to go ahead and show you every step that could be possible. And so for this finish, because I'm using a gray chalk synthesis paint color, I am priming my board with Wise Owl's Stain Eliminating Primer in gray. It's the perfect base primer for the colors that we'll be using to create this finish. I will apply 2 coats to this board, letting them dry in between. Now it's time to add our base color. I'm using Wise Owl's Chalk Synthesis paint in Smoky Quartz for this. Sometimes because of the natural ingredients in the chalk synthesis paint, you may get little clumps. You can avoid that by straining your paint first, but it's really not necessary. You can always pick them up as you go along. Use your brush to pick them up, or use your fingers or something like that. Again, I'll be applying 2 coats of this paint color and letting each coat dry in between before moving to the next step. I'm using the Wise Owl's 1.5 inch angled brush for this step. This is where the finish really begins to take shape. And so for these next few steps, we're going to be using chip brushes. And the reason that we do that is we like these brushes because the bristles are loose and they don't take a lot of color. You want to apply a little bit of this gray linen, that is the color that we're using right now, and you're going to apply a little bit of paint to your brush, dab it on a paper towel, and we are just threading color. That's what I call it, is threading. You can see that it really does end up looking like little threads of color. You're going to complete this until you feel that you have enough of that particular color, whatever your preference is. It depends on the look that you're going for. Don't be concerned if you go a little heavy in an area. We are definitely going to address how to fix that. You can see right there that I went very heavy in an area. It wasn't my intention, but sometimes it happens, and we're going to be able to take care of that. You're gliding gently over your board with the gray linen, just creating these beautiful threads of color. Once that's dry, it's time to add our next color. Using the same technique as we did with the gray linen, we are now going to create threads of Grecian clay throughout our finish. You'll move over the entire board. You'll apply Grecian clay in areas. It's going to go over your smoky quartz. It's going to go over your gray linen. And again, we're just creating these beautiful threads of color throughout our finish. I do this step until I feel that I have even threads of both of the accent colors across my project. Now we're going to address these areas where you can see that I went really heavy with the gray linen. And this is an easy thing to do. All we do is take our base color, which was smoky quartz, and using the same technique as we did for the threading of the other two colors, we're going to thread that smoky quartz right back into our finish, paying special attention to the areas that we just went a little heavy on. And as we continue this, you'll see how adding that base color just really, takes care of any heavy areas that you may have made. So I don't want you to worry if that happens to you. This is how we fix it. Now that I'm pleased with this, we're going to move on to the next step, which is we want to seal our project. Once you're happy with the finish, we're going to seal this. And what I'm using is Wise Owl's varnish, and I prefer matte, but it also does come in satin. You could also use a 1 hour enamel clear coat. Any top coat that you prefer to use is fine for this, but we definitely want to seal it before the next step, and we will let it dry completely before moving on to the next step. This next step is where we apply our black walnut glaze. The glaze is probably my favorite step in this process because it really pulls the entire finish together. You'll see that I'm applying it full strength with a lint-free cloth. It just happens to be a torn up t-shirt. And I recommend wearing a plastic glove for this step because the glaze will stain your hands. You can wash it off, but just to avoid that extra step in your day, just wear a plastic glove. If you prefer a lighter application of the glaze, you can certainly mist your sealed, we've already sealed the board with varnish, so you can mist that with water before applying your glaze, or you can add a little bit of water to your glaze before picking it up with your cloth, and you can see that I'm just rubbing it on. You can brush it on and wipe back. I like this method of application. I feel it just gives me a little bit more control. You definitely want to work in small sections as you're glazing because the glaze does dry pretty quickly. You can add more glaze after the first layer dries if you want something even more dramatic. You certainly can do that. You can see how the glaze just gives a uniform finish to the entire project. Once the glazing is done, it's time to seal your project again, and then your finish is complete. Okay, so now we are ready to put this on an actual piece of furniture. Now, I hope that you've practiced on a scrap piece of board, but I wanted to show you, I have a sweet little nightstand, and even though you can't see the entire thing, we're going to be able to address the direction that you go, how to address the legs on something like this, a shelf, how you decide which direction this is going to go. So what I have is I have all of my paint colors, and I have my chip brushes, and I've got my paper towel, and we're going to start with the gray linen. So I'm going to take a little bit of gray linen, just like we did on our practice board. I have a little bit of paint here, and I'm going to brush it off. I want paint on there, but I'm going to, since this is going this way, I'm going to come in this direction with it, and I'm going to go back and forth. I'm just threading that color through. You want to work in small sections. This is going to be a little bit harder to see, the gray linen, because it is lighter. I'm not sure. I think we'll go up here. Let's go up here, and I'm going to thread that color through, working in this direction until I am happy with that. We're just threading the color. We're not putting on a coat, okay? So we will do that. On this one, I want to come down because the legs are coming down, so I'm going to thread that color in a downward direction. I'm going to do the same on the spindles and on the legs, just like this, okay? And then, so you're wanting to go in the direction of how you think, if this were unpainted, how you think the wood grain would go. So for this bottom shelf here, because the table is wider than it is deep, I'm going to imagine that the wood grain would be going horizontally. And so that is how I'm going to thread the color. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to thread that color, getting a little bit more paint on my brush, picking it up and going all the way across in long sweeping motions. I'm just threading that color through, just like this. You want to make it like little threads of color going through your finish. And so you're going to move in one motion in longer strokes. And remember, if you were on your practice board, you are going to remember that we had a couple of little spots. Like I've got a spot right here where it's very, very heavy in the in this one area right here. And I'm a little heavy right here. So I'm going to address that. We can remember we've got a cleanup stage. So I'm going in the direction that I think this would go, downward on my legs, across on any styles, and then imagining since this is wider instead of deep. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a new chip brush and I'm going to add my Grecian clay, which is darker than the gray linen. And we're going to do the same technique. Okay, I'm going to come across here and I'm going to thread that color across. I can put a little bit of pressure on my brush, but I don't want to put too much. Just threading some color. And remember, if you go too heavy in an area, it's not a problem. I still have enough paint on my brush to come down here on the legs. Moving kind of slowly. Got a lot of, can clean that up. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the shelf. And to avoid it being stripy, you want to meet up with wherever your brush left off. You can also use a larger chip brush. That's not a problem. It depends on the size of your piece and what you're most comfortable with. So I'm just threading the color through. Just a really light touch, just to create that streakiness right here that you can see. On the areas that I feel that I went a little heavy, I'm going to take my base color because we started with a table that was already primed and had 2 coats of smoky quartz. And so my base, since my base color is smoky quartz, this is already dry to the touch. So I'm going to take a little bit of my smoky quartz, wipe that off on a clean area, if I can find one. And then just where I went too heavy, I'm just going to thread more of my base color. And you're just going to do that in all of the areas that you feel are a little bit heavy. And then you're ready. Once you've got it where you like it, you can continue to go over your table until you have the threading, as I call it, that you prefer. And then once it looks good to you, you are ready to seal, glaze, and seal again. And that is the restoration finish. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you're inspired to try this finish. And just to recap, here are all of the supplies that I've used. Again, if you want to use Wise Owl paint to try this, please go to their website, use their retailer locator, and find someone near you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next Tuesday for studio sessions at 2. Take care, everyone. Happy painting and creating.